The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Werewolves. They're a menace, but luckily Amber is joined by guest werewolf expert Morty to discuss the movie of the same name. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
Well, it has finally happened. Hell has frozen over.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but I do feel like this film was the Purge Werewolf edition.
Yes, and speaking of, okay, get on in here. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Hello. Guys, this is Morty. Morty is on the Fantasy Football Monsters, my other show, and he is the werewolf on that show. So he is way more
Qualified?
qualified to discuss this subject than I am. So with that, I will leave it to Morty. Oh, wonderful.
Welcome, Morty.
Thank you. It's so lovely to finally be here on the show with you.
Yes, it is a delight, and I'm very glad that you're here to talk to us about this movie. And it is Werewolves. In Werewolves, a supermoon event has triggered a latent gene in every human on the planet, turning anyone who enters the moonlight into a werewolf for that one night. Chaos ensues, and close to 1 million people die. And now, a year later, the supermoon is back.
So, I had a few problems with this movie, but for the most part, it was scientifically accurate. Maybe I can discuss some of my issues.
Well, it certainly wasn't a good PR piece for Werewolves.
Well, no. But, So, first of all, the whole thing about the transformation and the losing of your mind, yeah, that's a thing. I've seen some ugly stuff.
That felt close to home, huh?
It did. You may remember that we recently had a beaver supermoon.
Yeah, I do remember that, and I remember you having to take some time away from the Fantasy Football Monster Show.
I did. While I'm generally getting good at not transforming during these things, you can never take it. Be too careful around a supermoon. So I took my leave of absence from that, but some of my other friends who maybe didn't take it as seriously as I did found themselves in a murderous rampage.
Yeah, it was really insightful. I don't know if you consider Werewolves more of a documentary opposed to a drama or a horror film, but I gotta tell you, some of those werewolves were pretty scary. They were very intense.
Yeah, a couple of them look like second cousins of mine, perhaps. So, the one thing that I do take umbrage at is the idea that when you transform back, that you necessarily fully transform back. So, you'll notice with me that my face never swapped back.
Yes, you do have a wolf face at all times.
I do. The rest of me transformed back into my humanoid form, but I still have the wolf face. Now, sometimes it does transform all the way back, and I feel I am fortunate to have the best of both worlds. I can maintain my human form and my intellect without losing my brain, and at the same time, I'm enough werewolf that they don't try to kill me.
I was confused by one thing, Morty, and maybe you can help me explain this. So,
Go ahead.
when the humans went outside, stupidly, and were touched by the light of the moon and would start to transform into werewolves, they would get really large when they were werewolves.
Yes, I've ruined many clothes.
Well, that was my question, actually. They still had clothes on. Like, their pants still fit, or their vest. The one guy who transformed me had a vest on that said wolf killer. And other people with their pants.
Not like that hatred.
Yeah.
So that's a Hollywood thing. Generally, when you transform back, you will find yourself to be completely nude, which is very unsettling the first time it ever happens, and honestly, rather embarrassing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I also noticed the jewelry still, like if someone had on chains or an earring or whatever, they still had those on as well.
That does stay. Now, if it's like a necklace, it's possible it might have popped off with the neck expands. But for things such as earrings that merely require a hole, that hole is kept and the earring stays on. It's kind of the weird exception on this. Rings will pop off and necklaces can pop off, but earrings
That makes sense.
do not. Or nose rings as well.
Oh, interesting. So I appreciate you sharing the point, though, about everyone being naked when they wake up in real life. And that does make sense that Hollywood might not want to show all of that genitalia.
No, let's keep the genitalia to a minimum, please.
Okay. So what else did you think about this film? Obviously, your insight as a werewolf is far more useful in this episode than mine as a mere human.
See, it's interesting because I do run this border of both a humanoid and a werewolf, and I can understand the humans not wanting people to transform into werewolves because they do become murderous fiends when
Yes.
that happens. In mind you, many of them have been friends of mine, and they didn't mean to kill all those people, but it just gets the brain and you kill people. So I can understand the humans wanting to prevent this and it being a big thing to do. Personally, I think possibly a curfew, which is enforced, would maybe be a little better. But still...
Well, they did have that on the film, but apparently some people still went out. And then, obviously, this was the second supermoon. So you had people who were infected the first time without realizing it, knowing that they were more inclined to then transform into werewolves the second time.
Yes, two of the test subjects who looked as though they had never experienced a transformation were very eager to experience it. And I myself have experienced several in my lifetime, but allow me to tell you, the first time you ever transform, it hurts a lot, and you don't know exactly what is going on. I've been told the pain is about equal to childbirth.
That's interesting because I did notice the marks on the bodies of the humans who had transformed in year one, and they had all kinds of weird stretches and kind of cuts and
Yes.
weird body things, because when your body gets bigger, I guess your childbirth comparison is accurate in that you almost get stretch marks, right?
It's kind of like when a fat person has liposuction. The fat's gone, but all the excess skin, not so much.
I guess my only firsthand experience with werewolves, and by firsthand I mean no hand, is when I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Willow was going out with Seth Green's character who turned into a werewolf. And so that's how I learned about werewolves, is every month they would have to put Seth Green into a cage for the night, and Willow would go and lock him up, and he'd werewolf, and then in the morning he'd be back to his normal self.
Yes, so that is something that there's some truth to that and some fiction as well, and as in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
A supermoon is a virtual guarantee that you will transform.
Okay.
If it's not a supermoon, it is possible that you will not transform, but you don't know.
Oh, interesting.
Which is why I have to take a leave of absence every 4 weeks, supermoon or not. Because can you imagine if I transformed in the middle of a show, I try to kill my co-hosts and the producer, and it would be very awkward the next time.
And your show is video, so if you transform, that would be quite a show.
It would, and no, I'm good.
So, Morty, let's dig into what we do here at Cinema IRL, and we talk about what we would do in the character's shoes. And the one theme here that I want to explore with you, since you have firsthand knowledge of the werewolf lifestyle, is that the scientists in the film were trying to create I'm going to use air quotes here, cure for what was happening to the people, in that they would spray them with this liquid.
Moon block, I believe, was the name of the substance.
Yeah, it was moon something.
It was moon block because I remember thinking that it's like sunblock, only it's moon block.
Okay. So they would spray it with them, and it would block the moonlight from actually having contact with the mutant gene in humans that allows them to transform. And initially they thought this worked, and they were all thrilled, but then they realized it only worked short time, about an hour, and all the people wound up transforming anyway and killing all the scientists. If there was something that prevented you from transforming, is that something you'd want to do?
Well, I would say yes, but I need to clarify a few things from the movie versus real life.
Okay.
Number one, they made it seem as though anyone could transform if exposed to the moonlight. This is false.
Oh, okay.
There are certain genes that you must have to be subjected to being transformed, and many people do not even know that they have the gene until they've actually been transformed.
Interesting.
So, I believe the last figure I heard was approximately 6% of the world's population has that gene, and amongst them, approximately half of it generally lies dormant.
That's interesting.
Generally, it will, if it comes out of a dormant state, it will do so generally in either their 20s or possibly early 30s or late teens. That's generally when you see it come out of a dormant state. So the fact that there was a child werewolf, that was completely ridiculous. We would never see something like that. No child could possibly ever have their gene come out of a dormant state.
That's interesting, and I really appreciate the truthfulness and the fact checking that you bring to this episode for this show, because it can be a confusing topic for humans like us.
Yes, I'm surprised I was not hired as a consultant for the movie to make it more accurate.
Well, I'm sure movie producers and directors or whatnot, they tend to go over the top, and maybe fact checking isn't always their first priority.
Yes, but back to your initial question about if there was a cure, would we want to take it? I would say absolutely. The truth of the matter is, despite my demeanor, most people, when they see my face, run in horror.
Oh, that's unfortunate, because the faces in the film, they actually were scary and drooly and very intense, but your face is adorable.
Well, yes, so my face transformed is not quite the same as you see it now. It is closer to what you saw in the movie, but
oh, that's interesting.
when I revert, it reverts back to semi-humanoid, but maintains the werewolf characteristics. And this can change from person to person. Sometimes it's legs. Sometimes it could be a left arm. You don't really know. So in a way, I kind of have it lucky that it's just one part, but I still, I don't need a costume to go out on Halloween. My face does it just fine.
Okay, well, that's actually really good information for us to have.
And yes, and there's also the part where when you transform and you become a murderer, people people want to murder you. And, I don't like that. I'd rather not be hunted because I went a full 5150.
Well, as a society, we generally frown upon the whole 5150 murder thing.
Yes. The one aspect of this movie that I don't feel was covered that I would like to explore is the financial aspect of it.
Okay.
Or at least how it would be in real life.
Okay.
So, as you may or may not know, bullets in general are not effective on a werewolf.
I thought they had to be silver bullets.
The bullets must be made of silver, for sure.
And they had regular bullets
They
in this
did
film, right?
appear to use regular bullets, so in real life, they wouldn't care. Now, the one who got his head ripped off, that's still going to get the job done. But it's interesting to see how the price of silver on the stock market can fluctuate up and down in relation to when there are going to be supermoons.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's a higher demand for silver when there's a supermoon?
Yes, because you need a way of being able to put down anyone who's lost their mind. And so, in a way, I kind of feel like it's insider trading for me because I know this a little bit more and I've gotten more used to the supermoons and which ones are a little more active, if you will, than others. So, it's done fairly well for me in my portfolio. But, other factors could come in as well. I've lost some money, but generally, I do okay.
Well, I really, really appreciate the information and the facts that you're bringing to this episode, because frequently we say what we would do if we were in the character's shoes, but you actually are in the character's shoes every day. So I appreciate the dose of reality that you're bringing to this particular episode.
Yes, and I never actually thought that I would be given the distinct honor of slipping into the co-host chair to do this wonderful podcast. And it makes me happy cry finally been able to. So, Scott, Amber, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. And possibly I did notice in the previews for this movie,
Yes.
there was one called Wolfman.
Yes.
I don't know much about it, but perhaps I could make a return appearance on that one.
You know what? When I saw this, I absolutely knew we had to have you, and I am curious about Wolfman as well. So we will definitely see how that pans out and if it makes sense for you to come on back.
Wonderful! It's a date! So, I've spent a lot of time talking in this episode, so I'd like to give you the opportunity to give the final word.
Oh, gosh. I think my final word is when or if you ever encounter a werewolf in your life, I encourage you to look beyond the scary, menacing, drooling face and the sharp teeth, and to realize that beneath that is someone like Morty here, who is quite lovely and quite charming, and don't always judge a werewolf by its cover.
Yes, that was a little woke even for me. If you see a werewolf in real life, you should run like hell. We don't know what we're doing, and we're likely to rip your abdomen to shreds. My apologies.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.